So we all know that it's really hard to get this these days. DDR5, DDR4, any DDR is actually just getting really expensive. So today we're gonna show you how to download more RAM. Sorta, kinda. I mean, seems legit.
So Jay likes boats.
USS Fletcher, torpedoes, and agility.
No. He really likes boats.
I'm the Bismarck, I shoot big guns. Oh no!
He really likes boats.
The IJN Yamato, the true fear in the Pacific.
And when he's not playing with his boats, he is building his boats.
Done.
And when he's not building those boats, he's playing with those boats. Online, in World of Warships.
If you've never tried it before, or it's been a while since you've played, now's actually a great time to jump into World of Warships. It's a free-to-play online naval battle game with over 850 historically inspired ships across 5 different classes, from nimble destroyers all the way up to massive battleships, aircraft carriers, and even submarines. They keep the game fresh with monthly updates and add new ships, events, cosmetics, and visual improvements like updated maps, water effects, lighting, and weather. You can play solo or squad up with friends in divisions, and if you use my link in the description and the invite code IMPACTFORCE, new players can unlock a bunch of free rewards to get started. And if you'd rather play on console, be sure to check out World of Warships Legends.
So yeah, he really likes boats.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you utility by the makers of DDU, which is called Intelligent Standby List Cleaner. That's it. Anyway, it's made by the same guys as DDU, and it's gonna actually have a lot of use cases for many of you. I was kind of aiming this towards people that maybe have very limited amount of RAM. So for instance, I have taken this Intel test rig of ours and neutered it down to 8 gigabytes of RAM on a single channel. Now the channel doesn't matter. I mean, it kind of does, but it doesn't in this case. It's about the quantity or the capacity of the RAM, not the speed. It's only 4,800. It's basically the other half of this kit. All right, it's clearly no frills at all. But what we're gonna show you is what your system does with system memory. If you're the kind of person that leaves your system on for days or weeks at a time, the fact that that standby list can grow and grow and grow, and that list is usually proportionate to the amount of RAM that's in your system. So somebody that has 32 gigs versus 16 versus 48 or versus 128 if you're Phil, then the amount of standby storage or RAM that's saved on that standby list, that capacity, that's gonna look different based on how much RAM you have. But if you have a small amount of RAM, then it might actually start impacting your system if you've left your system on for days or weeks at a time. You have lots of background tasks running, you have lots of programs running in the taskbar, you have lots of tabs that are saved into cache. So we're gonna show you a really neat free utility that can actually make your system run better regardless of how much RAM that you have. So what I've done here as a little test is I've got a bajillion tabs open. And it's funny, I kind of realized, like I was opening tabs, like going to different websites and stuff, and then I realized it really doesn't matter if it's just this page or there's actually a lot of this shit updating in the background. It kind of hit the system the same. It's just I guess it's just a little slice of RAM that's saved for each tab. So check this out. If you can do Control-Shift-Escape, you can go to Performance. I don't know, my voice cracked right there. I was like, escape. Anyway, you can see we only have 8 gigabytes of RAM, it's showing right there. Memory usage, 7.8 gigabytes is about what you are allowed to use of that RAM, because some always has to be saved for the OS no matter what. But anyway, we currently have 1.3 gigabytes available to us. But if you don't know how the memory composition works, if you hover over this block, it'll tell you exactly what that block is. So we currently have 6.5 gigabytes in use right now. It says memory used by processes, drivers, or the operating system. I wish it would stay up longer. And the next block here says standby. So we have 1.32 gigabytes of memory that has cached data in it. It's not currently being accessed, it's not currently being used, it's cached. And what that does is it allows programs that you've recently run to open quicker. It allows tabs that you've recently viewed to open faster if you have your browser set to open to the last session. So that means any tabs that you've had open and you close the browser and you open them back up are going to automatically open those tabs again. And then you can see over here, we have another block that's just free. How much RAM is currently sitting there not being used by anything. And even though it shows available as 2 gigabytes, we really only have 650 megabytes free because it's combining these two together. If it needs to dip into the cache, it will. But what's free is actually only 636 megabytes. And that's where you can start seeing some hitches and stuttering and slow down in your system, because as it then starts to access some of that cache memory, there can be a little bit latency as it sort of crosses over. So we want to free up as much RAM as possible. Now, a little caveat, this might, if you use this tool a lot, and let's say you can hotkey it even, so you can make a keystroke that will automatically run the list cleaner, it can make things open slower. So for instance, your tabs are no longer cached, and you open up those tabs, it has to load each one again. So this could be useful for people that have lots and lots of RAM, and like I've said for the third time now, have left their systems on for weeks and that list just continues to grow. It's kind of like a hard reset. Let's just clear the cache, let's start over, let's build a fresh list based on my most recent usage. So anyway, we'll go and demonstrate that now. So what I want to show you here is, if I just sort of minimize that, I want you to see right here the available RAM. If I just keep hitting plus here, look at it drop, available. Look at that, available. Look at that. Look at that. Now we're starting to hang a little bit. So you can see we have no free left. Now we have dipped into the standby for pretty much everything. So we've used up all the free RAM. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and, well, I guess click any one of these tabs. I was about to open another browser. Anyway, things we have running in the background are stuff that most people might have running. Like we have Discord running right here. We have Steam running. We have Ubisoft, like Uplay running. Not a whole lot, but I've seen system like screenshots of people where they'll click that and there's like a huge list of things running, and every single program hits the RAM and obviously the cache. And while it's running, it's in active use. So when it's being actively used and you have to start swapping, RAM blocks out, then you start to see even bigger hiccups and hitches in the systems or stutters. You click on something and it takes, 5-6 seconds before it responds. That can all be because of the fact that you could potentially run out of RAM. Could be also some drive caching, but that's a whole different discussion. So we're gonna go ahead and now look for, was it?
ISLC.
Yeah, ISLC. Download Intelligent Standby List Cleaner. So it's the one by Wagnardsoft. We'll go with the latest version, I guess, right here. So we have a 1.046 and this is a 1.041. So it looks like this will be the latest one. I want to download it direct from the developer, not from any of these hosts. Okay, so we'll go ahead and download the installer right here. I downloaded the portable as well, but we'll just do the installer. We'll go ahead and run this. Hit next, hit agree, hit install, and we're gonna run it. Okay, so enable purge hotkey. This is where I said you could set up a hotkey if you wanted. It's automatically set to Control-Alt-P. I'll just not do that for now. For now, I just have to click this button that says purge standby list. Start ISLC minimized and auto monitoring. That's fine. I don't mind letting this run in the background. It's pretty, it's a pretty lightweight app. You can also change the polling rate. You could set that to like every 10 seconds if you wanted. I don't think you really need to poll every second. These are in milliseconds, so every 10 seconds would be fine. So you can see our standby list is 1.7 gigabytes of our total 8. That's a fair amount. So if you look right here at the page file usage, this is where any RAM that's needed, that's above the physical RAM that's in your system, gets moved to the storage device. Now SSDs have made this a little less painful. This used to be really painful on spinning hardware, but it's still, even an SSD is still ridiculously slow versus the actual RAM. So any amount of usage on the page file is bad. And you can see we've currently got 9% actually being used by the page file. So free memory is down to 22 megabytes, 23 megabytes. So what is this saying right now? We have exceeded our system RAM. Now, as we are trying to kind of move around in the system, it's not terrible. Like, let me open MSI Afterburner. I mean, it's not terribly slow, but it's also not ideal, right? So let's just, I mean, it's actually a little bit snappier than I thought it would be, but then again, the CPU does also have a fairly large cache, which helps. But anyway, so let's go ahead now and just click this, and let's see what happens to our usage on the graph and on the chart right here. Boom, look how much free RAM we just got. We have 1.4 gigabytes of free memory now, but this is still open, so it's still technically kind of in the used RAM. I'm gonna close this now. Now look how much RAM we got back right there. Like, there's always been the joke about, so the new Edge is actually built on the same kind of like foundation as Google Chrome. So Google Chrome was always the meme of like RAM usage. And the newish Edge is also the same way. So watch what happens now when I reopen all those tabs. So now you can see, watch, as it's loading all those tabs into cache. See this? Look at the shrinking here. And we're about to go into page file here in a moment. And now we're about back to have to go to page file. So yeah, that is where tabs can be honestly your biggest enemy when it comes to RAM usage. Now let's talk about auto purging here. So you can set this up right here. It says standby list will be purged when both conditions are met. The list size is at least a gig and free memory is lower than a gig. Now you can customize this if you want. So I want to see what happens if I have the list. So we'll go 512 megabytes and then start. So we have 1.1 gigs free, even with all these tabs open, and standby is at 843 megabytes. So you could fine tune it to keep a certain amount of system RAM available to you at all times. So if I close all the tabs, there we go, we've got all that back. But now if I open all these tabs back up with ISLC running and we're set to, at least leave a half a gig available and free, then we should be able to see this list not completely max itself out if it's doing its job right. Look at that. It's growing. So we're staying at a gig free, 86227. Oh, look at that. It got like right there on the edge. So now you see the standby is what's shrinking and growing, but the free, see how we just got to 512 and now we got some more free? So it's doing its job and it's actually working pretty well. So what you're gonna notice is the cache shrinking and growing, but the free always stays there. Now free is gonna allow you to be able to have system RAM available to you at all times. But like I said, you very well, if you have a small amount of RAM, could find your system responsiveness potentially be a little bit like, I don't wanna say chaotic, but a little bit more random, depending on what's in that current standby list. So obviously if you have like say 16 gigs of RAM, you stick another stick in there, then you could grow that to something like, say, always leave 3 gigs available or something like that. Then you can have a larger cache file and your system RAM is always gonna have a good pool available to it. Anyway, I just thought this was a really neat utility. We did some searching. Phil found this one actually, and because it's got by the guys of DDU, which we all know and trust to properly get rid of our drivers that leaves all the crap behind in the registry, I figured this would be maybe a useful tool for a lot of you right now that are feeling the struggle of RAM capacity because maybe you were holding out to get more RAM and then you got bit by the current state of affairs. This will allow you to almost kind of sort of download some RAM and not necessarily have to go in and modify your startup programs and stuff. Although I still fully believe having less things starting is better. Don't have things running in the background you don't need, especially if you're resource limited. All right, guys, thanks. I should probably be more careful with that. Thanks for watching, guys. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.